Thanks for sticking around, everyone. We've got one more block that just concluded the entertainment block. So thank you, Lisa, for leading that panel. And this next spotlight block is all focused on data and storytelling. So that's why I decided that I wanted to get Dele Atanda here. He is the creator of an NFT project called Metaknyts. We first connected in a Twitter space about a month ago, right?
That's right, yeah.
And the mission of this project is focused on digital civil rights, data privacy, data autonomy, data ownership. What really struck me about it was the whole fictional storyline of the Metaknyts. And before I talk anymore, I'm going to let you share with everyone what this actually is, what the storyline is, and how your mission came into focus for you.
Sure, thank you. So Metaknyts, we call it the battle for the soul of the metaverse. It essentially is a story about data sovereignty, data liberation. Our elevator pitches think the Matrix meets Mr. Robot on the road to Wakanda. Which I have a lot of fun with. But yeah, no, I mean, the premise of the story is that there's a physical world called Terra and a digital world called Digiterra. And Digiterra is overrun by a conglomerate of cyber vampires that suck people's data in Digiterra and use it to enslave them in Terra. And most people are oblivious to the fact that they have these digital twins in Digiterra whose data is being sucked accordingly. And to make it even more kind of entertaining, the Fangs are at war with the Bats, and they are both trying to create a super AI, which they believe whoever creates that first will have supremacy and will be able to rule over both realms eternally. So, and well, we are talking to some studios at the moment around it. And, you know, there's a lot of talk in the community about it being sort of like the next Black Panther. And we like to think it's kind of, you know, on the road to Wakanda. But the Metaknyts are effectively trying to disrupt this model with decentralized technologies, decentralized AI, and decentralized information ownership and sovereignty. So it's really a way to kind of bring this whole mission of the space to really answer the why question of crypto that is often really kind of ignored and not really kind of focused on before you get to the how and what effectively.
And how has your community and audience received the storyline and the mission of digital civil rights and just the need for that to penetrate web culture more? Not just Web3, but everything that we're doing. I mean, our privacy is, there's nothing is sacred anymore. So how have audiences gravitated toward that educational process that you've been providing?
That's a good question. I mean, I have to say, you know, privacy, well, there are few people like me wake up in the middle of the night or the middle of morning thinking about privacy issues, but I think most people don't. And, you know, privacy is almost like a negative. So you almost have to, it's difficult to win battles on negatives. I know that a lot of advertising is based on fear, but I think it's more constructive and it's more healthy to work on the positives in terms of data ownership and prosperity and liberation and freedom that comes from that. I think in short, the communities responded very well to the proposition, to the concept. And you know, another really important part of our story is that the heroes in the story are from very diverse backgrounds. You know, there's a lot of African heroes in it and people from backgrounds that we don't normally see in superhero kind of contexts in that regards. So I think that's something that people gravitate very much with. You know, when we launched the project, we ran a crowdfunding campaign on Start Engine. We raised $1 million on that, which was great, which was the maximum that was allowed at the time. So, excuse me. Sorry, excuse me. But yeah, I think I'm really excited actually because the story hasn't really been told yet. We've only really just released the pilot episodes, so people know the first 2 episodes of the story. But we're just about to launch season 1, and we've completed like the next 11 episodes. And, you know, yes, it's NFTs, and yes, there's, you know, we're building a metaverse, and there's a play-to-earn game, and all of those elements are all part of it. But for me, the thing I'm actually most excited about is people getting the story and hearing the story and connecting with the story, because I think that's our strongest asset.
And you have a pretty vast background when it comes to storytelling and what influenced your ability to craft story. Can you share how that journey began for you?
Specifically, I grew up on comics, for starters. You know, my brother worked with Marvel, and his apartment was like a library, and literally people would come in on Friday and not leave until Sunday and just sit and read comics and and just kind of hang out and chill and or whatnot. So it's I was always inspired, and actually comics played a really important role in my life growing up. And what I came to understand as I grew older was that comics have this, they're supposedly actually one of the most powerful mediums for complex stories, for politics or religion. They're quite often these are disseminated around the world through comics. They're a very powerful way of simplifying complex messages. I think with the Metaknyts project particularly, it started from technology, and we set up the Internet Foundation in 2013 in response to the Snowden revelations, and we've been working on data sovereignty and data protection up until that point. And we were working around the notion that at that time nobody even really could understand why privacy was even such a big issue. And so we were really looking at people in high-risk areas like in Syria and Afghanistan and where people's lives were in danger from their digital footprint, to try and get across the narrative that your digital footprint can expose you to dangers. And then, of course, Snowden's revelations happened, and lo and behold, the dangers were not in Syria, they were in New York, they were in London, they were in Berlin, they were everywhere. So that really fueled us to understand, one, that we needed to address these issues from a universal perspective. So we took the principle of human rights and said, okay, well, how can we just really look at those and apply them to cyberspace? And started working on that. But with all of that, they say, what is it? A story is better than a grocery list of facts. We realize that you still need to connect with people emotionally for people to really care about this stuff.
Yeah, you bring up a really great point around data and the importance of connecting it emotionally. So I think it was maybe 7-8 years ago when data-driven storytelling was a big term that I'm sure you came across a lot. And data-driven anything was a big term. But so with something like data, right, that doesn't really have a persona or personality, what was your creative process in creating a storyline around something that people could relate to, people could care about, characters that people would actually want to invest in?
Well, increasingly reality is stranger and more entertaining than fiction. It's hard to keep up with reality, really, in that regards, when you're making up stories these days. So there was plenty of fodder there. And, the basic, simple aspect of it, I never could get over an acronym, FANG for Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, Google, and BAT for Baidu, Alibaba, and Tencent. And I just kept going round this thinking, this sounds very vampire-like. And, well, there's a story in that. There's a kind of context around how you could, and that was the kind of genesis point. And then I thought, well, actually, yes, if you told this story from the perspective of cyber vampires and kind of put data into this context of this, the fuel of the digital economy, but people getting strength and becoming more powerful from acquiring other people's data, then you kind of start to have the bones of something here. And also, I think because of the nature of the mission is still about data sovereignty. And with the Internet Foundation, we've declared we are trying to, in partnership with others, get 1 billion people self-sovereign by 2030, in line with with a couple of SDG 16.9, etc. Initiatives. So we wanted to keep the story in some ways grounded and anchored in some elements of reality that people could relate to, so that, as we transition back towards the metaverse and Web3, and we start to develop the tools that people can use to really be free, that it won't be too alien to them. So I think it's, reality provides a vast amount of creative inspiration and material. But it's really just giving us a framework to look at reality from a slightly abstracted way where we can make sense of it more and then be in a position to take action. I think that's the ultimate goal of what we're trying to achieve.
And then sorry, I keep forgetting. With regard to your actual community, the NFT community that you've built, what do they receive? How are their lives, maybe in addition to the education they're getting about the importance of data sovereignty, what are they getting from being a part of your community?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, our community is split in many ways. We have traditional investors through Reg CF equity that hold equity stakes in the company, and NFT holders. But in simple terms, we talk about three types of utilities. So of course, financial has got to be the ground, the basic. Everybody's in NFTs for money, essentially, primarily. I think, and I don't think that's a bad thing, by the way. I think the energy and dynamics of wealth creation that's in the crypto space is a very constructive energy and force to leverage. So that's initial. So we figure out ways that people can realize financial value, and that's from obviously appreciating assets and data pools and staking pools and all of that sort of stuff. What's very interesting, I think what I'm very excited about in the financial aspect is our model and intention is to enable people to be able to monetize their data. So actually extract data from their money, and we've got some very practical ways that will be easy for people to understand to do that. So that's one aspect. The second aspect is more in the entertainment side of it, and that's access to content and access to the story, the gaming, the gameplay itself, even though there's a play to earn aspect to it, which is financial as well. But I think the entertainment, and I do believe that particularly, and our target is really Gen Z and Gen Alphas. And
what are Gen Alphas? What's that?
I have two of them at home.
What's that?
But they are an interesting generation. I tell you honestly. I mean, Gen Zs, that's the Greta Thunberg's generation. They're very uncompromising. They're very demanding. They're very purpose-driven. Gen Alphas are just a whole nother kettle of fish. But I believe these are the generations that are actually going to really take this stuff forward and really utilize it. And I think we'll find supporters and advocates within Gen X, Y, but our targets is definitely Gen Zs and Gen Alphas. So on the entertainment side, making it fun, making the learning actually fun and entertaining is key. And then the third utility is social utilities, which really kind of is our core calling, and that's giving people sovereignty tools. So we're releasing a self-sovereign single sign-on service that we call it Fang Disconnect, which is a play on Connect. Yeah. Some big company that's recently changed its name's Connect service. But it's just basically because I think it's unacceptable, and it's a whole nother conversation. We talk about Web3 and all whatnot, but for me, the term web as opposed to internet, I believe the crypto space is very much in an Internet 2 stage at the moment, because I think Web3 is all about user experience. And regardless of what we say about Web 2, it's been a revolution in user experience. I think what companies like Tinder and Uber, I should say Uber and Tinder, what companies like Uber and Tinder have done in terms of user interfaces is revolutionary. And I don't think the Web3 technology or experience, I should say, is in that space yet at the moment. So, but I do think that it's really important to get that right kind of experience that kind of brings the story to life in that regard.
No, thank you. Have you seen Super Pumped yet?
I'm watching it. It's a fascinating show, I have to say.
It's the show about Travis Kalanick on Hulu. Joseph Gordon-Levitt. I don't know if anybody's interested. People are like, okay, whatever.
Yeah,
Joseph Gordon-Levitt is playing Travis Kalanick.
He's a great actor. I'm a great fan of his. I really like his work generally, and I'm finding it interesting. I'm finding it. I wouldn't say inspiring, because it's not,
No.
But I am definitely learning some things from it.
The way that the writers and director have orchestrated the dynamic between him as a founder and the VC is really, I like watching that whole thing unfold.
Yeah, it's really
So
entertaining.
we're running out of time, but I have one more question because I like asking NFT creators this. There are a lot of different ways that you can teach people about digital civil rights and protecting your data. There have been apps years ago that started that were attempting to to allow people to own their medical data, their social data, their health data, financial data. I don't know what happened to any of them. So, but for you, why and what NFTs? Why were NFTs the vehicle to push this mission through?
Well, it's part of the solution, in truth. I don't think it's the entirety of the solution. I think it's just part of the solution. And it's an important part of it. And it's relevant in the context of storytelling and putting value around storytelling in that regards. And I think I do have to say, and you know, why, without getting too philosophical about it, I think what's happening in the NFT space and the art space, where you've got this massive influx of artists into the state of the art in technology. I don't know anything in history where you've had an adoption of a technology by the art community at such an early stage. And the impact and the potential of what that means culturally, I think is phenomenal. So I don't think NFTs are the be all and end all, but I think in terms of the mass adoption of crypto and the transformation, the birth of a true Web3 culture, I think they're really at the cutting edge of that.
Okay, quick question, and then we have to go to Jim quick and Lori, but yes, Kareem.
I have one question, Dele. Where are you going to be May 18th? Self-sovereign identity, economy of self.
I'm going to be one of the best places in the world to be discussing that in Lisbon
Global
at the
Investment
Global
Forum.
Investor Conference. Selfless plug, absolutely.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad you could make it out. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much
you,
as well,
thank you.
Melissa. Thank
Yes.
you for inviting me. A great conversation.